Today we're going to learn about the different properties of numbers. We are not only going to see them with numbers, but we are actually going to see them in algebraic form with variables. Our first property is called the commutative property. A shortened way to remember this is that you can change the order. So this means you can change the order of the numbers, but you would still get the same answer. Our two examples are 5 plus 4. That would equal the same amount as 4 plus 5. Notice that we also have it with a multiplication problem. 3 times 8 is the same as 8 times 3. Notice how I'm not solving either one of them. They're just set equal to one another. A way to show this with algebra is A plus B equals B plus A. Another way to show that is A times B would also equal B times A. Our next property is called the associative property, and what that means is that we can change the groupings. And when we see the word groupings, we mean where we have our parentheses. We could change what the parentheses are surrounding, but we would still get the same answer. So looking at our numerical examples, 4 plus 2 in parentheses plus 7 would equal the same amount as 4 plus 2 plus 7 in parentheses. So notice how I've moved the parentheses from around the 4 and the 2 to be around the 2 and the 7. The same concept goes for multiplication. 2 times 2 times 3 in parentheses would equal the same as 2 times 2 in parentheses times 3. Again, I'm just changing what I see grouped inside the parentheses. So seeing this with algebra, I could use A plus B plus C would equal the same as A plus B plus C in parentheses. That's with addition. We could also have that with multiplication and variables, and we would see that as A times B times C is the same as A times B times C. Again, I'm just changing the grouping. I'm changing what is seen inside of the parentheses. The distributive property states that a number outside of the parentheses can be multiplied by both numbers inside the parentheses. So we will see a number outside the parentheses, and then it will be multiplied by the numbers inside the parentheses. So 2 times 5 plus 2 times 6. So it's a number outside the parentheses is multiplied by both numbers inside the parentheses. Showing this algebraically, I could have a number outside, so 5 times A plus 3C would actually become 5 times A plus 5 times 3C. I could actually multiply the 5 times 3 and get 15C. Do not combine the A's and the C's. You leave it exactly the same way. Sometimes you may see a variable sitting outside the parentheses, but you do the exact same thing. Multiply the K times 3, you get 3K, and multiply the K times 4, and you get 4K. Now this one you could actually get a total of 7K, because you can combine variables that are exactly the same, but you cannot combine them if they are different. So we did not combine the A and the C. They are not the same variable, but we did combine the K's. The identity property, there's one of multiplication and there's one of addition, and they basically state that a number times 1 gives you the number that you started with, or a number plus 0 gives you the number that you started with. You're not changing the identity of the number. So our examples are 5 plus 0, that gives me 5, and 2 times 1 gives me 2. They match from start to end. You're not changing their identity. So showing this with variables, a plus nothing gives you a, and a times 1 gives you a. Again, I start and finish with the same number. I don't change their identity. The last problem you've been doing for years and probably didn't know that it had a name. The zero property of multiplication states that any number times 0, now this is different than the identity property, any number times 0 gives you 0. This is the multiplicative property of 0, meaning any number times 0 equals 0. So an example of this using algebra would be a times nothing gives me 0. Again, it is different than the property up above it called the identity property. So be very careful, pay very close attention to the mathematical symbols and what you start with and what you end with. The zero property of multiplication is the easiest one to remember because it has to have a 0 in it and it has to have a multiplication symbol in it, not a 0 and addition.